Wouldn't you like an upgrade? A brand new lemon-scented you?
American Gods Episode 5, let's talk about it. So we've got Media, and she looks like Ziggy Stardust and Marilyn Monroe, and it's real cool.
It was real cool. You know what else is cool? Subscribing to the channel. You should do that. Be cool. Go ahead.
Do that. Let's talk about Episode 5, Lemon Scented You.
Lemon Scented You.
So we start with another Coming to America story, but this time it's about a forgotten god named Nunyanini.
Which is my favorite word to say ever.
Nunyanini.
Guys, if you want to annoy anyone, just say that for like 5-10 minutes.
Nunyanini.
Nunyanini.
Anyway, so Nunyanini came across to America with this kind of nomadic tribe from Siberia. Is that right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, it was across a land bridge to North America. They followed their food source, which was mammoth.
And when they got there, their promised food was not there at all. It was very barren. So what they had to do was offer a blood sacrifice to the new god that was there. So the leader of the pack, Atsula, realizes that she has to be the blood sacrifice to the new god, and so they do that, and then a tribe appears and offers the travelers food, which they reject. And so they kind of, I think they take that as a slight against their god, and then they just like kill all the adults, but they leave the children alive.
You get to see Nunyanini just sitting there and slowly disintegrates, and you watch a god be forgotten.
Yep, and Nunyanini was forgotten because the children decided to eat the food, which is kind of symbolic of taking a new god.
The buffalo didn't have flaming eyes.
No.
So I don't think that that was the same buffalo that talked to the spirit of Earth that talked to Shadow. But there's been a lot of discussion about that. I personally don't think it's the same guy. Don't think it's the same buffalo guy.
Okay.
Nunyanini.
Nunyanini.
You know, you've gotten yourself mixed up in some really weird shit, Shadow. I'm watching out for you.
So Laura is actually rotting.
Yeah.
Like, I know that Emily Browning is gorgeous, but Shadow walked into the room with his ex-wife sitting there in a dress, and you're like, man, she looks... That's because you don't have smell-o-vision. He walked in, Wednesday puts it as cat piss and oven cleaner. Embalming fluid has not done very well for her aroma.
Right. Appearance-wise, she's fine, but apparently there's a real bad scent in there.
Flies like it.
Yeah, there's always a fly on her face. Well, Shadow and Laura are reunited, and we find out that the coin is inside her. We were right. Yeah? Yeah, it's in her chest cavity, so yeah, I think you're right. It did fall
right
in there. So they did show that. And then also when she kisses Shadow, her chest glows, and then you see her heart beat just once. Just once. And she said she felt alive, so... What's up with that?
I felt alive. I felt alive watching that. That was beautiful.
That's nice.
It's so weird that she is now more alive being dead than she was alive. And
yeah. She has more drive, more spirit. She wants to help him.
Maybe she wants to live again. Maybe that's her drive.
Yeah.
Maybe she misses the feeling of being alive, and you kind of see that when she inhales the cigarette and says that she can't taste anything, that she's really just devoid of everything except for him.
Yeah. Don't know what you got till it's gone, right?
Pave paradise and get into the next part of the video.
Anyway. So then Media is back, and she sucks Technical Boy into the VR limo. So she can do that. That's cool. She seems to have more power over Technical Boy than we thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and way more power over Awesome Shoes. She appears as Ziggy Stardust.
Why, you pretty thing, you.
Why?
You have an image problem. You need to think about your brand.
Ziggy Stardust is a David Bowie character that he made up for a 1972 album. Ziggy Stardust is an androgynous alien. The whole monologue is just saturated with Bowie quotes. Probably the most well-known is from Space Oddity, the Ground Control to Major Tom song. We'll actually include those in the description below if you'd like to check out all of them below.
That's all Mr. Wednesday needs. Just enough. Maybe just one.
So, we meet Mr. World in this episode. His intro is awesome.
Yeah, Crispin Glover did a fantastic job.
He really did. The producers, if you watch the post-show, talk about the scene where he comes in and takes his hat off and looks up. That's a recreation of the moment that they met Crispin. So he was actually riding his bike, but they didn't include the bike in the scene. I think that would have been hilarious if he just rode a bike down the hallway. What they did instead was like Michael Jackson, Billie Jean type
entrance,
thing.
Yeah, where his feet were lighting up the tiles, and like all of the cameras turned off as he was approaching the room. So I think it was either media or him that did that, but who can tell?
Technical boy. Who knows?
Who can tell?
When these three are together, the hijinks that happen are zany.
Yeah.
I have to start with an apology. I've been remiss. I should have reached out to you ages ago.
So then we have all of the new gods that we've seen so far at the station with Wednesday and Shadow, and they want to form a merger.
They sales pitch Mr. Wednesday, which I find really interesting. Mm-hmm. The whole room turns into a television screen, which is awesome.
No, not a truce.
A merger.
Yes. A merger.
If you haven't realized what's going on yet with him being called Wednesday and saying it's my day, him being called Grimner, the Allfather, all those references, get it together right now and realize that that's who he is. He's Odin. Mm-hmm. Which I mean...
He talks to his ravens.
He talks to his ravens.
Yeah.
Hugin and Mugen. Hugin and Mergendiger. You guys, I'm sorry about doing that. I did that on purpose. Go ahead and hate me in the comments. Hugin and Mergen.
He's Odin.
Happy birthday, Mr. President.
So we see media as Marilyn Monroe, and she seems quite powerful. She starts floating into the room.
She was definitely powerful. Mm-hmm. I've had a crush on this lady since X-Files when I was like 10. So some cool things that she does for the Marilyn Monroe scene is she does the Happy Birthday, Mr. President, which, you know, Marilyn Monroe actually did. Mm-hmm. And then they go into the conspiracy theory of how Marilyn Monroe died. And they just say, like, a CIA guy, a CIA man stabbed me in the eye with a needle because I was going to reveal too many secrets. That was scathing and really cool.
Last thing I saw from the floor of my Brentwood bungalow was a CIA spook jabbing a needle into my eyeball, lest I tell Kennedy tales unwanted.
So Laura and Mad Sweeney are the two biggest jerks in the show, and their scenes together are fantastic.
They make really good foils for each other.
Definitely.
Just like watching them just fight back and forth. So he's trying to get his coin back, and she's like, no, this is mine. My husband gave it to me. This is mine now, and you can't have it ever. And he can't take it back from her. Like, she has to give it to him freely, and she knows that now, so she wields that over him. And not only that, but she's so strong. All she did was flick him, and he went flying against the wall. And she flicked him again and, like, hurt his arm really bad.
He wouldn't be able to take the coin back anyway.
Exactly. She's way too strong.
It's pretty cool.
Come on. I don't think you're ever gonna get your coin back. Never, ever, ever. Not ever.
All right, let's talk about some powers that we've seen in this episode. So we have Mr. Wednesday, and he's got his ravens. So we see the raven watching over Shadow, and then it flies and goes to the hallway where Mr. Wednesday is, and he's talking to them. So
talks to him.
Yeah.
What?
He can talk to birds.
I like that it's such a classic thing whenever you're like wondering, is he actually talking to that thing? When they just make somebody go, what? What?
What'd you say?
What'd you say? Repeat that, bird. We get to see Media. She has a lot of powers, and it's indistinct who's doing what in that room because there's so many gods in that room, but she can definitely float on her own. Mm-hmm. She can appear however and as whatever she wants to, whether that's on a television screen or as Marilyn Monroe floating down a hallway.
And she could blow a kiss and knock someone's teeth out. She just knocked Technical Boy's teeth out with a kiss. That wasn't in the book. Mr. World is kind of omniscient. He just knows everything about every single person. And he points to his head and he says, the book of life. Like, he's like, everything you do is recorded. So is that his book, or is it just like he knows everything in the book of life?
I think he represents like globalization. Mm-hmm. At least that's what they're portraying him as.
And there's also that weird visual where his head just starts going weird and he shows Shadow what he looks like when he's spending some alone time with himself.
For one person to understand that another person was making the exact face that they make, that means that, you know, mirrors were involved. Shadow's a weird dude anyway.
Okay, how'd you do?
See that little spider? He's a friend of mine.
Anansi's back, and he can take care of some handcuffs for you. Just unlock those. even if he's a tiny little spider.
Tiny little spider unlocking handcuffs, the cutest little lock breaker ever. Technical Boy in this episode, before he was annoying and scary and kind of powerful, and in this one it seemed like he was just the other two gods' little bitch. Like he was like they were like his parents or something, and he was just. So maybe he is like the infrastructural background, or like maybe he's their IT guy, you know, like media.
He's the youngest one, so it seems like they're hazing him. Like they're hazing him hardcore because he's the youngest little baby one. It's like, oh, you have the internet. That's nice. The internet's so young.
But the content on the internet is media, so he's just the computer. He's not the stuff on the computer, right?
They all seem to be connected in some ways or the other. Yes. And some random Easter egg side notes. Did you see that guy's Google search at the morgue? Some horses?
He just needs to see some cute mini horses.
He just likes to see tiny horses.
He's surrounded by death in a basement all day. Sometimes he just wants to see cute horses. The other thing that I noticed is, we mentioned this a couple episodes back during the bath scene. There's a weird filmic style that they go into where things are slow-mo. So you get an in-depth look, in this case, into Shadow buying cigarettes out of a machine. And my theory back then is still my theory now. It's showing a ritualization of something. To somebody that smokes cigarettes, you're gonna go to that cigarette machine and you're gonna buy cigarettes, and it's just gonna be a thing that you do, a tradition or a ritual that you do before you smoke cigarettes. And I found it really interesting. I think that's what they're doing. If not, they're just wasting production funds for some unknown reason. So we got some questions from Twitter. One of them was great, from Ron Bertles. He asked exactly what we were asking. What the hell is going on with the tree?
Who dat tree?
Who dat tree,
Who
girl?
is the tree? Who is that tree? So we have an answer for you. We think it's a new interpretation of Mr. Wood. Mr. Wood in the books is one of the black hats that works for Mr. World, and they kind of just like follow Shadow around. They work for this agency that doesn't have a name, but this is probably a new interpretation of him based on this tweet from Brian Fuller with some concept art. So what do we have happening in next week's episode?
So you guys can watch the promo yourselves, but there's a new god being revealed. He's going to be recruited by Mr. Wednesday. His name is Vulcan, and he's the Roman god of fire and weaponry. Ooh. What does that mean in America? It means guns, baby. Guns. I'm super excited about next episode. Guys, hit us up on Twitter if you have any questions. It really helps us out. Buddy Hutton and Chastity_V, respectively, ask both of us questions, either of us questions. Hit them up at GameSpot Universe as well. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. Chastity, final thoughts?
Final thoughts? What do dead people smell like when they're hanging out in your hotel room? Thoughts? Let me know down below.
Mr. Wednesday knows.